Hey everyone. So today is day 11 of our 90-day challenge, and I gotta tell you, I'm gonna step away again from my agenda, which is okay because we have a lot of topics that we're gonna cover in these 90 days as we dive into what it really feels like to live authentically inside our spaces of vulnerabilities and owning those and naming them. And, maybe over time we turn them into strengths. I think gifting your vulnerabilities to those you love is the best gift you can give because it means you are putting yourself out there, not for someone else to fix, but for someone to see and to accept and to love exactly where you are. So I've got this agenda over our 90 days as we dive into what I use in the therapy sessions that I attend, the group sessions that I lead, my podcast that we'll be sharing over the next few months with experts and therapists and whatnot. I basically use DBT and CBT practices. Of course, I'm not a therapist, I'm a writer, an author, and an editor. But I am in this world of trauma with so many people. And if 2020 taught us anything, it's that self care matters and connecting with ourselves means something in what we give to the world. If 2021 taught us anything, it's that we need to deepen that connection. And we can do that outside of expensive therapy. And I'm not suggesting you don't get therapy. I have a therapist. I actually have a couple of therapists, and I work with different therapists in my businesses and with my children and with my families. And so this is all experience based for me. Anyway, today is the day that I come to you really, really struggling. And when I struggle, I do one of two things. I isolate or I lean heavily on my tribe. And not my whole tribe, usually just one or two people. And today I texted four people in my tribe and just said, I'm struggling. Just give me something. And, it's funny. My best friend, who is a therapist, called me and left me a voicemail. I was on the phone. And she left me a voicemail that was just hilarious. And she knew exactly what I needed. And her voicemail was in relation to exactly what I texted her. She used the same words and everything, but it was funny. And it just reminded me to just sit back and breathe and laugh. I can't change things that are happening. I can't change these triggers. I can't stop the jack in the boxes from popping open in my face, but I can control what I expose myself to. I can draw boundaries with myself and not let some of that in. And I can open myself up to laughing. And that's what she knows. And that's where she reminds me to just look, it's really heavy and it's really hard right now. So take a moment and live. And then I talked to my girlfriend. And of course, one of the first things I said to her is what I normally say to her. This isn't about you, and I don't want this to affect us, and I don't want to upset you, and this is about life before you. And it's really hard. It's really hard to process sometimes that I'm still going through the messed up stuff of life before you, but I am. And it's one of those things that I talked about when I decided to be in this relationship and kind of go all in was I'm still healing from life before you and I can't stop that process. I still have to do the really hard work on myself and healing and facing issues and fixing problems and taking these steps forward for myself. And she completely supports that. And it's funny because there's almost this emotional and physical separation that I can see her do when we have these conversations. We were on the phone, so there's no physical separation. And it's not even a physical separation in the sense that she sits back and she's like, okay, well, let me just be your friend and tell me all about it. She doesn't do that at all. In fact, she embraces me. So physically, she even brings me closer and hugs me, and she'll just say, just cry it out, just feel it, just feel everything you're feeling. This is what you need to feel. And she knows that I need to feel these things. Oh, I'm gonna cry on camera. She knows I need to feel these things in order to get myself, healthier in a place where I can be all in with her all the time. And as much as I'm all in, I'm not present all the time. Sometimes I'm inside the, pardon my language, but this is who I am. Sometimes I'm inside the fuckery, and that's hard. It's hard. Another friend of mine also kind of used humor, which was awesome. I didn't really expect anything less of her, and she reminded me that this will keep popping up if you keep letting it. So stop letting it. You letting it is in your control. So stop doing that. And my fourth friend, who I knew would respond exactly the way she did, and this is why I chose these four people, because I didn't know what they would say, and I didn't know how they would give to me today in the middle of a work day. But I know them well enough to know that they know me and what my needs are in these moments. And my best friend who used humor will come back at some point and also use psychology with me and kind of talk me down from this cliff or out of this hole. But my other good friend, I'm going to use a term, and I hope she forgives me for using it. I don't know if it's hers, if it's her therapist, if it's her friends, if she read it. I'm going to give her credit for it, but I'm not going to use her name. Um, she wants to give herself credit for it. She can put it right down below. Um, she called this trauma quicksand. And oh my goodness, I sat on my bed in tears reading this long text message she gave me, and she said everything I knew, and she validated my feelings at the same time. And she started with, I see you, and I hear you, and I feel you, and I relate to you, and it resonates with me, and I get it. This is the trauma quicksand. And then she got into exactly what I was doing and why it was not healthy for me, and where I was and how I could potentially get back onto the path I had been on of healing. Trauma quicksand. How often do we take a step forward and just sink? I feel like I have been sinking now for a few days. And today was the first day that I came up and just kind of put my hand up and said, somebody grab me, because I'm really struggling. Triggers, anniversaries, things that are happening, my daughter, abandonment, fear, uncertainty. I mean, goodness, I can name all of these things. And I'm not really getting into a challenge right now. I'm just kind of getting stuff out. I really want to challenge everyone to start naming emotions. I had to sit and say, I'm struggling. And what does struggling mean? What am I struggling with? Not just name the actions, the situation, the incident, the triggers, but what am I feeling? What am I really feeling? What does struggling feel like? What are the side effects of struggling? What are the feelings behind struggling? What emotions are going through my mind? So, my challenge for day 11 is to start a journal. It can just be bullet points. You don't have to write a whole bunch of stuff. Of naming your emotions. And if you can, start tying those emotions to some of the triggers that pop up like a jack in the box. There are days that I feel like all this hard work I have poured into myself, into my trauma, into my healing, into these abandonment issues has done wonders for me. It's created a beautiful relationship with my children. I feel like I'm back home again with them, even though I don't have the time I used to have because I gave up a life of time with them for a different life I lost. All this work I've done, I feel like has created space for me to create a beautiful and strong and healthy relationship with the woman I'm dating now. And living authentically for me certainly means sometimes putting her in difficult situations where I have to talk about life before her. And I challenge her to do that with me as well. I mean, I don't challenge her. I guess I invite her to do that. Developing skills takes time. And so, in order to become skillful at being mindful and coping through these moments and not falling deep into the trauma quicksand, I think one of the skills I'm working on and the challenges I would ask you all to work on is naming emotions and feelings. Understanding the difference between emotions and feelings is big too. But right now, even if we can just name them, then we can start to develop and hone that skill of practicing staying above ground or on solid ground at least when that jack in the box opens. Keep living here, inside the vulnerable, even when it's hard, even when it makes you cry, even when you want to run, especially when you want to run. Give the gift of whatever you're feeling to those you love. They get to feel their emotions as well, but they don't know what you're feeling unless you tell them. They don't know your insecurities unless you tell them. And they don't know how to uplift you unless you let them know you're struggling. Today, my friends, I'm struggling. I'm doing my best. And I have the tools and the tribe with me to keep me from struggling more and to keep me from sinking in that quicksand. So thank you, dear friend, for that analogy. I love it. Trauma, quicksand. I don't know who it belongs to, but it's genius. And so I'm giving you the credit. Thanks, guys. Take care.